The crack of a high-caliber rifle echoed across the Afghan mountains. Another Navy SEAL dropped the seventh in under 3 minutes. Their position had been compromised, the extraction helicopter still 5 minutes out. Through his blood-streaked tactical goggles, Lieutenant Commander Hayes watched his men fall one by one to an invisible enemy. "Sniper Ridge position approximately 1,400 meters," shouted the team's spotter just before a round tore through his throat. From their position in the valley, death seemed inevitable. The Taliban marksmen had them pinned with surgical precision. No cover, no escape, no hope. Oh. Then came the sound, distinct different from the enemy's rifle. A single shot from somewhere behind their position. A moment of confused silence followed. Through his radio, Hayes heard the impossible. "Tango's down. Extraction path clear. This is Ghost Hunter. You're welcome, boys." The voice belonged to a woman. "Yeah. The perfect shot doesn't just happen, gentlemen." Master Chief James Granite Wilson's gravelly voice carried across the Coronado sniper range with the weight of his 62 years. His weathered face, carved by desert winds and mountain cold, commanded absolute attention from the 12 SEAL operators assembled before him. The California sun glinted off the silver in his close-cropped hair as he gestured toward the legendary 1,200-meter target. 20 years ago, I put a round dead center on that target, still holds the base record." The younger SEALs exchanged knowing glances. Everyone knew Wilson's story. The old man never let them forget it. That shot wasn't luck. It was science, discipline, and thousands of hours mastering the fundamentals. Wilson's mind drifted momentarily to another desert, another time. Iraq, 1991, Operation Desert Storm. The endless sand dunes where he'd earned his reputation as one of America's deadliest snipers. The memory of his first confirmed kill, at 800 meters, still vivid, the Iraqi officer dropping mid-sentence, his men scattering like startled birds. "Environmental conditions must be read perfectly," Wilson continued, snapping back to the present. "Wind speed and direction, temperature, humidity, barometric pressure, elevation, and the Coriolis effect must all be calculated and compensated for." Senior Chief Nathan "Hawk" Hayes nodded respectfully at his mentor, Tomar. At 35, Hayes represented the bridge between Wilson's old-school techniques and modern technology. Beside him stood Petty Officer Marcus "Ace" Reynolds, 30, the team's rising star sniper with 4 confirmed kills on his last deployment, and Staff Sergeant Michael "Thunder" Brooks, 34, built like a heavyweight boxer with hands steady enough to perform surgery. "The Barrett M82A1 is unforgiving of error," Wilson said, patting the massive rifle on the table beside him. "But when mastered, it delivers death with certainty at distances most shooters can't even see." The atmosphere on the range shifted suddenly as all heads turned toward the access gate. A woman in civilian clothes, jeans, boots, and a simple navy blue windbreaker, walked calmly onto the restricted firing line. She appeared to be in her late 20s, medium height, athletic build, with dark brown hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Nothing about her appearance suggested anything extraordinary. Reynolds snickered. Brooks crossed his muscular arms with obvious amusement. Wilson stepped forward, his expression a mixture of annoyance and condescension. "Are you lost, ma'am? This area is restricted to qualified military personnel only." The woman met his gaze with calm, gray-blue eyes that seemed oddly familiar to Wilson. "No, Master Sergeant," she replied quietly, using Wilson's old rank before his promotion. "I'm not lost. I'm here to break your record." Wilson's eyes narrowed. Only someone with intimate knowledge of his service history would know he had once been a Master Sergeant. And something in those eyes triggered a distant memory he couldn't quite place. The SEAL operators exchanged amused glances, barely containing their laughter. This woman, this civilian, had just announced her intention to break a record that had stood for 2 decades. A record set by a legendary warrior at the absolute peak of his abilities. "Ma'am, this is an active SEAL training facility," Hayes said, stepping forward with professional courtesy. "I'm Lieutenant Commander Hayes. If you're here for the administrative tour, it departs from the main building." "I'm not here for a tour," she replied, her eyes never leaving Wilson's face. "I'm Lieutenant Alexis Morgan, 75th Ranger Regiment. I believe Commander Richards informed you of my arrival." Wilson's expression changed instantly. The name Morgan struck him like a physical blow. His mind raced back 30 years to another face, another pair of gray-blue eyes that had stared down rifle scopes beside him in a dozen hellholes around the world. "Morgan?" he repeated slowly. "Any relation to Mark Morgan?" A flicker of emotion crossed the woman's face before she regained her composure. "My father," she said simply. Wilson fell silent, memories cascading through his mind. Mark Phantom Morgan had been more than just another sniper, he had been the best. The stories of his impossible shots during covert operations were still whispered among Special Forces operators. And his death in Somalia in 1993 during the infamous Black Hawk Down incident had become the stuff of legend, sacrificing himself to save his unit, including a younger James Wilson. Reynolds stepped forward, skepticism evident on his face. With all due respect, ma'am, the 75th Rangers are an elite unit, but what we do here requires years of specialized SEAL training. Alexis turned her attention to Reynolds, her expression neutral. I'm aware of the differences in our training, petty officer. That's why I'm here to learn from your methodologies and share ours. Commander Richards calls it cross-pollination. Brooks chuckled. Cross-pollination, is that what they're calling it now? Wilson shot Brooks a silencing glare before returning his attention to Alexis. Lieutenant Morgan, I served with your father in 3 theaters. He was the best I ever saw. Wilson's voice grew quieter, more personal. I was there in Mogadishu when he didn't come back, Alexis finished for him. I know Chief Wilson. He spoke highly of you in his letters home. The Barrett M82A1 sniper rifle rested on the table between them, a .50 caliber harbinger of death capable of neutralizing targets at extreme distances. The weapon system weighed 29.7 pounds unloaded. The scope alone was worth more than most civilian cars. The rounds it fired could penetrate light armor at 1,500 meters. Wilson gestured toward the weapon. Are you familiar with the Barrett system, Lieutenant? In response, Alexis approached the table with practiced movements. Her hands moved over the weapon with the confidence of someone who had field-stripped similar systems hundreds of times. She checked the chamber, examined the barrel, and inspected the scope mount with methodical precision. Mark 13 Mod 7 with Schmidt and Bender PM2 525-46 scope customized trigger assembly reduced to 2.5 pounds of pressure and what looks like a custom-milled bolt carrier, she observed. Heavier than our Shaytac, but with better stability and crosswinds above 15 knots. The SEAL operators fell silent, watching her hands move over the weapon with undeniable expertise. Wilson's weathered face broke into the ghost of a smile. Mark would be proud, he said quietly. He always said you had his eyes. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Coronado Range as Wilson led Alexis and the SEAL team to the observation area. The older man moved with the deliberate gait of someone who had survived too many jumps from aircraft and too many miles with heavy packs. Your father saved my life in Somalia, Wilson said quietly, his voice meant for Alexis alone as they walked. Operation Gothic Serpent, Mogadishu, October 3, 1993. Alexis nodded her eyes, scanning the range distances, 600 meters, 800 meters, 1,000 meters, and finally the legendary 1,200-meter target that represented Wilson's long-standing record. I know, she replied. You were pinned down after the second Black Hawk went down. My father provided overwatch from the 3rd building on Halwadig Road. Wilson stopped walking, surprise evident on his face. How could you know that those operational details were classified? He kept journals, Alexis said simply. They were released to me when I joined the Rangers, along with his ballistic calculations and methodologies. Wilson's mind traveled back to that hellish day in Mogadishu, the suffocating heat, the constant crack of AK-47 fire, the streets swarming with militia fighters, and Mark Morgan, cool as winter steel, picking off threats one by one from his perch, 6 stories up, creating a corridor of safety for the pinned-down operators below. The night before he died, Wilson said, his voice growing distant, he told me something that's haunted me for 30 years. He said there was a traitor inside our intelligence apparatus, someone who had sold out our positions, our movements. He was going to take the evidence to command when we got back to base. Alexis's expression hardened. He never made it back. No, Wilson confirmed. The next day, he took a position to cover our emergency extraction, textbook setup, perfect sightlines. Then something went wrong. His position was compromised specifically deliberately. He held them off long enough for us to get out. His last transmission was just static. The memory still burned in Wilson's mind, the helicopter lifting off Wilson, reaching out as if he could somehow pull his friend from the chaos below, watching helplessly as Morgan's position was overrun. Reynolds approached, interrupting the moment. If you don't mind me asking, Lieutenant, where did you learn to handle a Barrett? That's not standard Ranger equipment. Alexis's expression shifted to professional detachment. After my father died, I was focused. A former SEAL, a friend of my father's, took interest in my development. He trained me from age 14 in advanced marksmanship. 14, Brooks asked incredulously. My childhood ended in 1993, Sergeant, Alexis replied without emotion. Wilson watched her carefully. There was more to her story than she was sharing, but this wasn't the time to press. Lieutenant Morgan has been deployed as a counter-sniper specialist with the Rangers for the past 6 years, Wilson informed the team. Her record in Afghanistan and Syria is impressive. With respect, Chief Reynolds interjected, range shooting and combat shooting are different worlds. I'm aware, Petty Officer Reynolds, Alexis replied calmly. That's why I'd like to demonstrate my capabilities on your legendary 1,200-meter target first. Brooks laughed out loud. Ma'am, with all due respect, most first-timers on this range start with the 600-meter target. The 1,200 is, well, there's a reason the Chief's record has stood for 20 years. Alexis didn't respond to Brooks directly. Instead, she turned to Wilson. If you don't mind, Chief, I'd like to examine the environmental conditions before attempting the shot. Wilson nodded, curious about her approach. He watched as she removed a small device from her pocket. A Kestrel weather meter, military grade, used to measure wind speed, temperature, humidity, and barometric pressure. Standard equipment for long-range shooters, but her methodical approach to gathering data impressed him. As she worked, Wilson noticed a small scar at her temple, partially hidden by her hairline, the kind of scar left by a bullet that comes too close. This was no novice. This was a combat veteran with her own ghosts. I've been tracking a high-value target for the past 3 years, Alexis said suddenly, her voice low enough that only Wilson could hear. A contractor turned terrorist who goes by the call sign, the Surgeon. Wilson's expression darkened. I know the name. Precision kills often from extreme distances. Rumored to have been CIA trained originally. He was, Alexis confirmed, adjusting her weather meter to capture another reading, before he sold his skills to the highest bidder. He specializes in killing American special operators, particularly snipers. And your interest in him is professional? Wilson asked, already suspecting the answer. Alexis looked up from her instrument, her gray-blue eyes so much like her father's, cold with purpose. I believe he was in Mogadishu in 1993, she said. And I believe he arranged my father's death. 3 years ago, he killed my mother, too. She was CIA, still investigating what happened in Somalia. Wilson absorbed this information silently. The pieces were starting to align. This wasn't just about breaking a shooting record. Alexis Morgan was hunting a ghost from the past, a ghost that had taken everything from her. Chief, she said, her voice taking on a new intensity. I need to break your record today, not for glory, but because where I'm going, the shots I'll need to make will be even harder. And I need to know I can make them. The afternoon sun hung low on the horizon, casting golden light across the Coronado Range. Perfect shooting conditions, minimal wind stable, barometric pressure, excellent visibility. The kind of day snipers dream about. Reynolds had just completed his attempt at the 1,200-meter target, missing by mere inches, an impressive shot by any standard, but not enough to challenge Wilson's record. Brooks followed with similar results. Both men were exceptional marksmen, among the best the Navy had produced. Now it was Alexis Morgan's turn. She approached the shooting position with quiet confidence, carrying the Barrett M82A1 as if it weighed nothing. Though the massive rifle was nearly half her body weight, with its loaded magazine and accessories. Lieutenant Morgan will now attempt the 1,200-meter qualification, Hayes announced formally following range protocol. Reynolds leaned toward Brooks, whispering, $10 says she misses by at least a foot. Brooks shook his head. Sucker bet. That's a 20-year record held by one of the best snipers in SEAL history. No offense to the Rangers, but this isn't their specialty. Wilson watched Alexis with growing fascination. Her preparation was unlike anything he'd seen before. After setting up the rifle on the shooting rest, she removed a small notebook from her pocket, worn leather pages yellowed with age. Her father's journal. She consulted a series of handwritten tables, making calculations based on the environmental readings she'd taken earlier. What's she doing? Hayes asked quietly, standing beside Wilson. Something I've never seen before, Wilson admitted. Some kind of custom ballistic calculation. Alexis made minute adjustments to her scope settings, far more precise than the standard military ballistic tables would suggest. She was accounting for variables most snipers didn't even consider. Harmonic balancing, she explained, sensing their curiosity. A technique my father developed after studying with a former KGB sniper during a joint operation in the late 80s. It accounts for barrel harmonics and their effect on bullet trajectory at extreme distances. Wilson's eyebrows raised. The Soviets were advanced in some aspects of long-range shooting, but I've never heard of this technique. It was never widely shared, Alexis replied, making one final adjustment to her scope. The Cold War ended, the program was discontinued, and most of the documentation was destroyed. My father's notes are likely the only remaining record. She settled into position behind the rifle, her posture textbook perfect. Her breathing slowed visibly, reaching the controlled rhythm all precision shooters strive to achieve. Her cheek welded to the stock, her eye aligned perfectly with the scope. The SEAL operators watched in fascinated silence. Whatever they had expected from this Ranger lieutenant, it wasn't this level of technical expertise. "Send it when ready," Wilson said quietly. Alexis's finger took up the slack in the trigger, applying pressure with microscopic precision. Her body was completely still, as if she had transformed into an extension of the weapon itself. The Barrett roared its massive 50 caliber round, tearing through the air at nearly 3 times the speed of sound. Through the spotting scope, Wilson watched the target 1,200 meters downrange. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with almost theatrical timing, the center of the target erupted in a cloud of dust and fragments. "Hit," the range officer called out. "Dead center." Before anyone could react, Alexis cycled the bolt with lightning speed and fired again. The second shot came less than 2 seconds after the first, impossibly fast for such a heavy rifle. "Second hit," the range officer shouted, disbelief in his voice. "Same hole, double tap at 1,200 meters. The range fell silent. A double tap 2 shots hitting the exact same point at 1,200 meters was considered virtually impossible. The minute variations in powder charge, air density, and a dozen other factors should make such precision unattainable. Reynolds's mouth hung open in shock. Brooks stood motionless, his crossed arms falling limply to his sides. "How?" Hayes finally managed to ask. Alexis stood smoothly, her movements as controlled as her shooting. The second shot uses the atmospheric disruption created by the first round. If fired within the correct time window, approximately 1.8 seconds, for this distance, the second bullet follows essentially the same path through the air. My father called it ghost trailing. Wilson stared at her with newfound respect. "Mark never taught me that technique. He was still perfecting it when he died." Alexis said, her voice carrying a hint of sadness beneath its professional tone. "I spent 15 years completing his work." Wilson was about to respond when the base alarm system erupted in a wailing cry of urgency. Red emergency lights began flashing across the facility. Commander Sarah Richards burst onto the range, her face tense with urgency. At 42, Richards was the senior operations officer for SEAL Team 6 with command experience in every major conflict zone of the past decade. "Wilson Hayes, get your team geared up immediately," she ordered. "We have a hostage situation requiring immediate response. 12 American personnel, including 3 diplomats and a nuclear physicist, are being held at a compound on the Afghanistan-Pakistan border." Hayes and his team snapped to attention, all thoughts of the shooting record instantly forgotten. "Wheels up in 30 minutes, Richards continued. "Full mission briefing on the aircraft." As the SEAL operators moved with practiced efficiency toward the armory, Richards turned to Alexis. "Lieutenant Morgan," she said, her voice lowering, "your counter-sniper expertise is now mission critical. Intelligence confirms the hostage takers have deployed at least 8 highly trained marksmen in elevated positions around the compound." Wilson, who had remained behind, looked between Richards and Alexis with growing suspicion. "This wasn't coincidental, was it?" he asked. "Morgan's arrival just before this mission." Richards's expression remained professional, but her eyes betrayed the truth. "The situation has been developing for 72 hours, she admitted. "Lieutenant Morgan was specifically requested for this operation due to her expertise in countering precision ambush tactics." Alexis checked the Barrett, confirming it was cleared before preparing to move. "Commander," she said, her voice taking on a new intensity, "what's the identity of the hostage taker?" Richards glanced at Wilson before responding. "Intelligence identifies him as a former contractor known by the call sign The Surgeon." Alexis's expression hardened into something cold and dangerous, a look Wilson recognized from decades of warfare. It was the expression of a hunter who had finally located their prey. "Then it's not a coincidence," Wilson stated flatly. "He's been waiting for her." "It appears so," Richards confirmed. "Intelligence suggests this entire operation was designed specifically to draw Lieutenant Morgan into the field." "It's a trap," Wilson concluded. "Yes," Alexis agreed, her voice calm despite the implications. "But not for me." She began walking toward the armory, her purpose evident in every step. For him. The emergency briefing room hummed with controlled chaos as maps, satellite imagery, and intelligence reports were distributed among the assembled operators. The wall screens displayed real-time footage from surveillance drones circling high above the target compound, a fortified structure nestled in the mountains along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. Commander Richards stood at the head of the table, her expression grave. "Gentlemen and Lieutenant Morgan, this is a priority Alpha hostage recovery operation. 12 American personnel were captured approximately 30 hours ago during an inspection of a remote research facility." She gestured to the main screen, which showed thermal imagery of the compound. "We have confirmed that all hostages are being held in the central building. 4 are high-value 3 State Department officials and Dr. Eleanor Chambers, a nuclear physicist with Q-level security clearance." Wilson studied the compound layout, his experienced eye immediately identifying the tactical challenges. Multiple buildings, elevated positions with commanding fields of fire, limited approach vectors, a defender's paradise. "The captors?" Hayes asked, already making notes for the assault plan. 20 to 30 combatants, Richards replied. "Heavily armed, former military based on their movement patterns and defensive positioning. They're being led by this man." The screen changed to display a grainy image, a tall figure in tactical gear, face obscured by a balaclava directing operations in the compound. "Known only by his operational call sign, the Surgeon," Richards continued. "Former CIA asset who went rogue approximately 12 years ago. Since then, he's sold his services to various terrorist organizations in hostile states. Specializes in targeted killings of Western Special Operations personnel." Reynolds glanced at Alexis, who was studying the image with intense focus. "What's his interest in these hostages?" Brooks asked. "Unknown," Richards admitted, "but based on Dr. Chambers' expertise, we have to assume the worst, that he's after nuclear information." Wilson turned to Alexis. "Lieutenant Morgan has been tracking this target for some time. Perhaps she can provide additional insight." All eyes turned to Alexis, who had remained silent during the briefing. She stood and approached the screen, analyzing the terrain surrounding the compound. "The Surgeon is a precision killer," she explained, her voice clinical and detached. "He treats assassination as a science. These hostages aren't his primary objective, they're bait." "Bait for what?" Hayes asked. "For us," Alexis replied simply. "Or more specifically, for me." Richards nodded grimly. "Intelligence supports Lieutenant Morgan's assessment. This appears to be an elaborate setup designed to draw in a specific response team." Wilson's eyes narrowed. "Why go to these lengths? Why not just target Morgan directly?" "Because it's not just about killing," Alexis explained. "It's about proving superiority. The Surgeon doesn't just want me dead, he wants to defeat me at my own specialty on terrain he's chosen under conditions he's controlled." She pointed to the elevated positions surrounding the compound. "These 8 positions aren't random. They're precisely placed to create interlocking fields of fire, a death zone, where any conventional assault team would be eliminated before reaching the compound." Hayes studied the positions with new understanding. "She's right. Those positions cover every approach vector, textbook ambush setup, which is why Lieutenant Morgan's counter-sniper expertise is critical to this mission," Richards concluded. "Without neutralizing those overwatch positions, a direct assault would result in catastrophic casualties." Reynolds, who had been skeptical of Alexis from the beginning, finally spoke up. "With respect, ma'am, how exactly is one sniper supposed to neutralize elite elevated positions simultaneously?" Alexis turned to face him directly. "Not simultaneously, petty officer. Sequentially, in a specific order that creates a shadow corridor, a temporary blind spot in their coverage, through which your assault team can move." Wilson nodded with growing appreciation. "Like a precision breach in their defensive perimeter." "Exactly," Alexis confirmed. "But the window will be extremely narrow, perhaps 2 minutes from when I take the first shot until their defensive network recalibrates." "That's not much time to cover 300 meters of open ground," Brooks observed. "It's all we'll have," Hayes replied. "We'll make it work." Richards checked her watch. "Wheels up in 15 minutes. Gear up and proceed to the airfield." As the SEAL operators moved to collect their equipment, Wilson approached Alexis privately. "There's something you're not telling us," he said quietly. "Something personal about the Surgeon." Alexis hesitated, then met Wilson's gaze directly. "The night before my father died in Mogadishu, he sent a coded message to my mother. It contained evidence that a CIA asset had compromised their operation, selling intelligence to the local militia. That asset's code name was the Surgeon." Wilson's expression darkened with understanding. "You believe he arranged your father's death?" I know he did, Alexis replied, her voice hardening. And 5 years ago, he killed my mother when she got close to proving it. She was found with a single shot to the head from 800 meters away. His signature. Why didn't you tell me this during the briefing? Because this isn't about vengeance, Chief Wilson. It's about completing my father's mission, exposing a traitor who spent 30 years killing Americans while pretending to serve our interests. Wilson studied her face carefully. The face of Mark Morgan's daughter, now a woman with her father's skills and her own demons. Your father was the best I ever knew, Wilson said finally. If you're half the sniper he was, the surgeon doesn't stand a chance. A ghost of a smile crossed Alexis's face. I'm not half the sniper my father was, Chief. Her eyes held a cold certainty that sent a chill down Wilson's spine. I'm better. The armory buzzed with practiced efficiency as the SEAL team prepared for deployment. Each operator moved with a mechanical precision that comes from thousands of hours of training, checking weapons, securing tactical gear, testing communications equipment. Wilson found Alexis in a quiet corner, methodically assembling a weapon system he didn't immediately recognize. It wasn't the Barrett from the range, but something more specialized. Chaytak M200 intervention, she explained, noting his interest. Modified with a custom carbon fiber barrel and proprietary trigger assembly. Wilson examined the weapon with professional appreciation. The Chaytak was renowned for its extraordinary accuracy at extreme distances, a sniper's sniper rifle. Effective range, he asked. 2,300 meters with standard ammunition, Alexis replied, securing the massive scope to the rail system. Up to 2,500 with these. She opened a small case containing rounds that looked unlike any Wilson had seen before. Each bullet was meticulously handcrafted with unconventional geometry and what appeared to be microgrooves along the projectile body. Custom loads, she explained, developed specifically for ultra-long-range interdiction. The design maintains supersonic flight 20% longer than standard rounds, reducing transitional ballistic instability. Wilson's eyebrows raised in surprise. That's advanced, beyond anything in our current arsenal. It should be, Alexis replied with a hint of pride. I designed them. As she continued preparing her equipment, Wilson sensed an opening to address what had been bothering him since their earlier conversation. I've been carrying something for 30 years, he said quietly, his voice dropping to ensure privacy. Something I need you to know before we deploy. Alexis paused her preparations, giving Wilson her full attention. The day your father died, Wilson continued, his weathered face showing the weight of old guilt. He made me promise something. He said, if I don't make it back, take care of my family. It was the last thing he ever said to me. Wilson's hands, steady through decades of warfare, trembled slightly. I meant to keep that promise. I tried to find your mother after we returned, but she had already gone dark CIA protocol after losing an operative in the field. By the time I located her again years later, she'd remarried and you were in college. I thought you were both better off without the past haunting you. Alexis absorbed this information silently, her expression unreadable. I was wrong, Wilson admitted. I should have been there. Maybe if I had, your mother would still be alive. The surgeon would have killed her anyway, Alexis replied, her voice calm but firm. And probably you too. He's methodical, eliminating everyone connected to what happened in Mogadishu. How did you get involved in hunting him? Wilson asked. The Rangers aren't typically assigned to counterterrorism assassination missions. Alexis's hands moved automatically, loading the massive Chaytak rounds into the magazine with practiced efficiency. After my mother was killed, I found her files, everything she'd gathered on the surgeon over the years. I took them to my commanding officer, but the official investigation went nowhere. Too many redactions, too many dead ends, too many officials unwilling to dig into CIA black operations. Her eyes hardened with remembered frustration. So I continued her work unofficially, used my leave time to follow leads, cultivated sources in places Rangers aren't supposed to have sources. Eventually, I built a profile detailed enough to track his movements, predict his behaviors. And your training, Wilson pressed. The techniques you demonstrated today go beyond standard military sniper schools. A faint smile crossed Alexis's face for the first time. After my father died, a man came to our house, a former Spetsnaz operator who had defected during the Cold War. He said he owed my father his life. When he learned I wanted to follow in my father's footsteps, he offered to train me. Russian methodologies. Wilson nodded with understanding. That explains the harmonic balancing technique. Nikolai trained me for 10 years, Alexis confirmed. Every weekend, every summer, while other girls were going to parties, I was learning to read wind patterns and calculate ballistic trajectories. She locked the magazine into the rifle with a decisive click. When I was 16, Nikolai took me to the mountains in Wyoming, set up a target at 1,600 meters farther than any shot my father had ever made. Said I couldn't come down until I hit it. How long did it take? Wilson asked. 3 days, Alexis replied. 3 days on that mountain, making adjustments, learning to read the environment, understanding how bullet and air interact at extreme distances. When I finally hit the target, Nikolai just nodded and said, "Now you begin to understand." Wilson studied her with new respect. Her story explained the extraordinary skill she demonstrated on the range. This wasn't just talent or standard military training. This was a lifetime of single-minded dedication. Your father would be proud, Wilson said quietly. Maybe, Alexis replied, her voice carrying a hint of uncertainty for the first time. But I'm not doing this for his approval. I'm doing it because the man who arranged his death is still out there, still killing Americans. And after 30 years, it's time someone stopped him. She stood, the massive Chaytak rifle slung across her back, looking remarkably like her father had all those years ago. The same determined set to her jaw, the same unwavering focus in her eyes. There's something else you should know. Chief Wilson, she added, her voice dropping to ensure only he could hear. The intelligence on this mission isn't complete. The surgeon won't just have 8 snipers in those positions. He'll have a 9th, his personal insurance policy, in a location no one expects. How can you be sure? Wilson asked. Because it's what I would do, Alexis replied simply, and he trained with the same man who trained me. The C-17 Globemaster III thundered through the night sky, its cavernous interior transformed into a mobile command center. Maps and tactical displays illuminated the faces of the operators as they made final preparations for what everyone now understood was an extraordinarily dangerous mission. Wilson, to everyone's surprise, had insisted on joining the operation. At 62, he was well past the age for field deployments, but his experience and knowledge of both the surgeon and Mark Morgan made him invaluable. I should be on the ground with the assault team, he argued when Richards questioned his decision. Negative, Chief, Richards replied firmly. Your expertise is needed, but your days of door kicking are over. You'll provide tactical oversight from the command position. Wilson knew she was right, but it didn't ease the frustration of sending others into danger while he remained behind. At the rear of the aircraft, Alexis was conducting a final briefing on the insertion method, a hey-ho jump, that would allow the team to infiltrate undetected. High-altitude, high opening is our only viable approach option, she explained, pointing to the mountainous terrain surrounding the compound. We'll exit at 30,000 feet, approximately 15 miles from the target. Oxygen systems are required. We'll deploy canopies immediately and conduct a silent glide approach along this ridgeline, which should mask our presence from ground-based radar. Hayes nodded in agreement. The hi-ho insertion gives us our best chance of achieving surprise. The question is, what happens once we're on the ground? Alexis shifted the tactical display to show the 8 sniper positions identified by intelligence. These positions create interlocking fields of fire, what we call a death zone. Any conventional approach would result in immediate casualties. Reynolds studied the display with growing concern. So how do we neutralize 8 snipers simultaneously? We don't, Alexis replied. We neutralize them sequentially in a specific order that creates a temporary blind spot, a shadow corridor through which the assault team can move. She demonstrated the concept with a simulation on the tactical display. I'll begin by eliminating this position first, she explained, indicating the northernmost sniper nest. This will create a momentary disruption in their defensive network. Before they can adjust, I'll take out the second position here at expanding the blind spot. Each elimination will be timed to maximize the growing corridor until your assault team has a clear path to the compound. Brooks looked skeptical. That's a lot of shots in a very short time frame. 8 shots in under 2 minutes, Alexis confirmed, from multiple firing positions that I'll need to move between rapidly. That's nearly impossible, Reynolds objected. The terrain alone would make that kind of movement extremely difficult. Alexis turned to face him directly. Petty Officer Reynolds, what's your longest confirmed kill in combat? Reynolds straightened slightly. 1,100 meters in Kandahar, confirmed by forward observer. Impressive, Alexis acknowledged. My longest is 1,870 meters in the Hindu Kush Mountains. Moving target, 30-knot crosswind, at night. The cabin fell silent as the SEAL operators processed this information. The challenge isn't the shooting, Alexis continued. It's understanding the meteorological dynamics of this particular valley. The mountains create unique wind patterns that change with temperature variations throughout the day. She pulled out a small notebook and began sketching detailed wind models. These mountains form what's called a Venturi effect in this section of the valley. Wind speed increases by approximately 40% as it funnels through this narrowing, creating a predictable bullet drift pattern that can be pre-calculated. Wilson watched her work with growing amazement. This went beyond standard military sniper training. This was advanced atmospheric physics applied to ballistic trajectories. The most critical factor, Alexis continued, is understanding how the temperature differential between the sun-facing and shadow sides of the valley creates microcurrents that affect bullet drop at extreme distances. Hayes leaned forward, genuinely interested despite his initial skepticism. How do you compensate for those variables? With this, Alexis replied, producing a small specialized weather meter. This device measures barometric pressure, humidity, temperature, and wind speed at my location. I then apply correction factors based on distance and elevation to create a firing solution for each target. She turned to Wilson. Chief, you're familiar with the traditional density-altitude calculation for long-range shooting. Wilson nodded. Standard procedure for anything beyond 800 meters. The method I use builds on that foundation, Alexis explained, but incorporates what my father called path segment analysis, dividing the bullet's journey into multiple sections and calculating environmental effects for each segment separately. The technical discussion was interrupted as Commander Richards approached with a tablet displaying new intelligence. We have updated thermal imaging of the compound, she announced grimly, and it confirms Lieutenant Morgan's theory about a ninth sniper position. She displayed the new imagery, which showed a heat signature in a location no one had previously identified. A narrow cave opening high on the eastern ridge, perfectly positioned to observe the entire valley. That position has line of sight to all potential insertion routes, Hayes observed, immediately recognizing the tactical significance. If that shooter isn't neutralized first, this entire operation is compromised. The problem, Richards continued, is that the position is approximately 2,200 meters from the nearest viable firing position for our counter-sniper. That's beyond the effective range of standard military sniper systems. All eyes turned to Alexis, who studied the new intelligence with calm focus. Not beyond the range of my Shaytac, she said quietly. With the custom loads, I can reach 2,300 meters effectively. You're talking about a shot that fewer than 10 people in the world could make, Wilson pointed out. Under ideal conditions, these will be far from ideal. I'm aware of the difficulty, Chief, Alexis replied, her confidence unwavering. But there's something else you should know about the surgeon. She pulled up an old personnel file on her tablet, a partially redacted CIA document from the early 1990s. His real name is Viktor Orlov, former KGB sniper who defected during the collapse of the Soviet Union. The CIA recruited him for their Special Activities Division, where he trained American operatives in advanced Soviet sniper techniques. Wilson's eyes widened with recognition. Orlov, I've heard that name before. Your father mentioned him once, said he was brilliant but unstable. He was my father's instructor for 6 months in 1992, Alexis confirmed, and later he became mine as well. The cabin fell silent as everyone processed this revelation. Nikolai, Wilson said, quietly putting the pieces together. Your Russian trainer, he was Viktor Orlov. Alexis nodded slowly. The man who taught me everything I know about long-range precision shooting is the same man who arranged my father's death in Mogadishu. The same man who killed my mother 5 years ago. The same man who's holding those hostages right now. Why would he train you? Reynolds asked, confusion evident on his face. To create a worthy opponent, Alexis replied simply. The surgeon doesn't just kill, he plays games. Complex, deadly games designed to prove his superiority. Training me, making me into a weapon, was just the first move in a game 30 years in the making. Wilson understood the implications immediately. This entire situation, the hostages, the compound, the sniper positions, it's all been orchestrated specifically for you. Yes, Alexis confirmed. But what the surgeon doesn't realize is that while he was teaching me his techniques, I was studying him, learning his patterns, his preferences, his weaknesses. For 15 years, I've been preparing for exactly this confrontation. The aircraft intercom crackled to life. 20 minutes to drop zone, prepare for hey-ho insertion. As the team moved to don their oxygen masks and check their parachute systems, Wilson pulled Alexis aside one last time. Mark would be proud of you, he said quietly, but he wouldn't want you to sacrifice yourself for vengeance. Alexis checked her weapon one final time, her movements precise and controlled. This isn't about vengeance, Chief, she replied, her voice carrying absolute conviction. It's about justice and completing the mission my father started 30 years ago. As the C-17's rear ramp began to lower, revealing the star-filled night beyond, Alexis Morgan stepped to the edge, the Chaytak rifle secured against her body, her eyes fixed on the darkness that would soon envelop her. In that moment, she was her father's daughter in every way, a ghost hunter preparing to confront the shadows of the past. The green jump light illuminated, casting an eerie glow across the determined faces of the operators. "See you on the ground, Chief," Alexis said, and then she was gone, vanishing into the night sky, falling toward a confrontation 3 decades in the making. Wilson watched her disappear, a single thought echoing in his mind. The surgeon believed he had set the perfect trap, but he had no idea what was coming for him. 30,000 feet above the Afghanistan-Pakistan border, Alexis Morgan plummeted through frigid darkness. The oxygen mask hissed rhythmically as she maintained perfect aerodynamic position, the Chaytak rifle creating asymmetrical drag that required constant adjustment, a challenge few operators would attempt. 4 seconds into freefall, she deployed her ram air parachute. Through night vision goggles, the landscape transformed into glowing green ridgelines and pitch-black valleys. 5 additional canopies bloomed behind her Hayes Reynolds Brooks, and 2 additional SEAL operators spreading in textbook formation. "Ghost Hunter Poseidon lead. Wind conditions." Hayes's voice crackled. "High-altitude winds steady northwest at 25 knots. Prepare for turbulence as we descend," Alexis replied, checking her wrist-mounted instrument. The 6 operators began their long, silent glide toward destiny. Unlike conventional insertions with aircraft noise, the hey-ho approach was ghostly quiet, only soft wind through parachute cells betraying their presence. Wilson provided guidance from the circling command aircraft. "Ghost Hunter Granite, satellite shows temperature inversion forming. Expect significant downdrafts on eastern approach." As they descended, Alexis recognized formations from satellite imagery. The distinctive ridge concealing the terrorist compound, the narrow valley providing the only viable approach, and the deadly funnel created by surrounding peaks. Perfect terrain for an ambush. Through enhanced optics, a momentary flash caught her attention, too disciplined for a careless error, too brief for standard signaling. "Granite possible signature at grid Echo 79er. Request FLR scan." "Scanning now," Wilson replied. "Thermal shows 3 heat signatures not in our brief. Configuration suggests mobile electronic warfare unit." Alexis processed this rapidly. Electronic warfare meant potential disruption of communications and navigation. "Recommend radio discipline from this point. Possible signal interception." As they descended further, Wilson's voice returned. "Satellite picking up unusual heat signatures near primary landing zone. Possible prepositioned welcome party." The surgeon was anticipating their approach with uncomfortable accuracy. This wasn't just good intelligence, this was intimate knowledge of U.S. Special Operations protocols. "Poseidon team adjust to secondary LZ," she transmitted. "I'll proceed to tertiary position solo." Hayes objected immediately. "Negative. Team integrity is essential." "The mission profile requires separate overwatch position," Alexis countered. "This was always the plan." After brief hesitation, "Confirmed. Proceed to tertiary rendezvous as planned." Alexis banked sharply, breaking formation toward a rocky outcropping 3 kilometers east. The maneuver would place her in perfect overwatch position, but leave her isolated without immediate support. Exactly as the surgeon would expect. Her boots touched earth with practiced precision. Within seconds, she established a defensive position, scanning for threats through advanced night vision. The mountainside lay silent, but instinct told her she was being watched. This was confirmed when her radio crackled with an unexpected transmission. "Welcome to my mountain's little ghost." The voice was cultured, bearing traces of Russian accent beneath years of careful Americanization. "I've been waiting for this reunion." The surgeon had made first contact. The game had begun. Dawn painted the mountains in blood-red hues. From her concealed position, Alexis surveyed the valley, methodically mapping each feature, shadow, and potential threat. 3 kilometers west, Hayes and his team had established their staging position. Through encrypted radio, their status reports came at precise intervals, using a code system designed to reveal minimum information. "Poseidon in position, tides favorable." Alexis shifted attention to the compound, a collection of structures nestled against the mountainside. The main building stood in the center, surrounded by smaller structures housing guards and equipment. Watching over this fortress were the surgeon's sentinels, 8 sniper positions commanding every approach. Through high-powered optics, she occasionally glimpsed movement, the subtle shift of a rifle barrel, the repositioning of a spotter. The ninth position, the one she had predicted, remained elusive. She identified a probable location in a natural cave on the eastern ridge, but no movement had been detected. Command is growing anxious about timeline, Wilson transmitted. Window for extraction narrows with each hour. Establishing firing solution parameters now, Alexis replied softly. From her rucksack, she withdrew specialized equipment, a Kestrel 5700 Elite weather meter, measuring wind speed, temperature, humidity, barometric pressure, and density altitude, a laser rangefinder accurate to within 1 meter at 2 miles, a notebook filled with handwritten calculations specific to her weapon. Current conditions: temperature 58 degrees Fahrenheit rising, barometric pressure 24.87 inches mercury, humidity 23%, wind variable between 3 and 12 knots shifting with the valley heating. These weren't ideal conditions. The rising sun rapidly changed the valley's meteorological profile, creating thermal currents affecting bullet trajectory unpredictably. How long until you can begin neutralizing overwatch positions? Hayes asked, tension evident. Minimum 3 hours, Alexis replied honestly. Valley conditions highly unstable during morning thermal transition. Wilson supported her assessment. At these distances, environmental factors are critical. Rush her and we lose our advantage. As she continued gathering data, the surgeon's voice returned. I taught you patience, little ghost. But did I teach you enough? Your father lacked patience in Somalia. It cost him everything. Alexis maintained discipline, refusing to engage with psychological warfare. Instead, she established her mobile sniper data processing center, ruggedized devices calculating precise firing solutions for each target. Movement at compound entrance, Reynolds reported. 3 armed tangos escorting what appears to be one hostage. Through powerful optics, Alexis watched 3 armed men lead a civilian male into the courtyard. The man's hands were bound, his face bloody from apparent beatings. Appears to be Dr. Robert Chen, Department of Energy, physicist. Status alive, but showing physical abuse. One armed man raised a satellite phone, an unmistakable message: they were prepared to execute hostages unless demands were met. Command confirms reception of ransom video, Wilson reported. They're demanding release of 3 prisoners from Guantanamo within 6 hours or executions begin. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. The surgeon was accelerating his timeline, forcing them to choose between high-risk daylight assault or watching hostages die. Primary overwatch eliminations will commence in 90 minutes, Alexis decided. Poseidon team prepare for assault phase immediately following final elimination. That's well before optimal stability, Wilson cautioned. The surgeon has forced our hand. We go with the conditions. We have not the conditions we want. Memory flooded back Wilson, sharing stories about a mission in Iraq during Operation Desert Storm. What did you do in Basra, Chief? She asked. February 1991, the Republican Guard officer with the radio. Wilson's surprise was evident. How do you know about that operation? My father's journals. He wrote about your impossible shot in swirling dust conditions. After hesitation, Wilson responded. 1,100 meters, 30 knot crosswinds, dust storm approaching. Republican Guard officer calling in artillery strike on civilian evacuation. Conventional wisdom said wait, but waiting meant hundreds of casualties. What was your solution? I calculated for the pattern in the chaos. The dust moved in rhythmic eddies created by terrain. I timed my shot to brief windows of clarity between dust waves. Alexis smiled. Pattern recognition in chaos. Exactly what I'm seeing here. The valley's thermal currents follow predictable cycles tied to sun movement and terrain heating. You're proposing to time your shots to these thermal windows, Wilson realized. 8 shots, 8 windows, 8 dead snipers, Alexis confirmed. The surgeon expects me to wait for optimal conditions. He won't expect me to exploit patterns within instability. Reynolds remained skeptical. If you're off by fractions of a second or miscalculate the thermal cycle, then I miss and we all die, Alexis finished matter-of-factly. But it's our only option given the compressed timeline. She made rapid adjustments to her ballistic calculator, applying advanced fluid dynamics to precision shooting beyond standard military sniper doctrine. It's not about luck, she told Wilson. It's about understanding that sometimes the most predictable moment occurs in the heart of apparent chaos. Ghost Hunter to all elements, she transmitted. Primary operation commencing in 60 minutes. As the sun climbed higher, Alexis Morgan prepared for the most challenging series of shots any sniper had ever attempted, a symphony of precision violence, upon which 12 American lives depended. 50 minutes to 0 hour. The Afghanistan sun beat down mercilessly as the surgeon's men prepared for whatever they believed was coming. Command is proposing two options, Wilson explained. Option 1, proceed with your sequential elimination plan, creating the shadow corridor for Poseidon's assault. Option 2, nightfall assault with complete air support package. Casualties, Alexis asked. Hostages would likely take significant losses in option 2, Wilson admitted. The surgeon would have hours to prepare, and approaching aircraft would trigger immediate executions. Then we proceed with option 1. Hayes joined the conversation. My team is prepared to execute on your timeline, but I need your confidence level on neutralizing all 8 Overwatch positions. A fair question. The operation hinged on her ability to perform a feat of marksmanship, pushing the boundaries of human capability. 70% confidence on positions 1 through 7, she replied honestly. Position 8 problematic due to extreme range and protective barriers. And the mysterious ninth position, unknown, Alexis admitted. I still haven't positively identified it. Wilson broke the tension with an unexpected question. Do you remember what happened to SEAL Team 3 in Mogadishu, October 1993? They attempted to extract a downed helicopter crew without adequate overwatch. 4 operators lost, 6 wounded. And why their sniper support failed? Official reports cited environmental complications, but my father's notes suggested more complexity. Your father was right, Wilson confirmed. The operation was compromised before it began. The militia knew exactly where our Overwatch positions would be established because someone had provided them with our standard operating procedures. Hayes caught on immediately. You're suggesting the surgeon was that someone? It fits the timeline, Wilson replied. Victor Orlov was assigned to CIA operations in the Horn of Africa during that period, had access to Joint Special Operations protocols. Alexis absorbed this information. The surgeon hadn't just arranged for Mark Morgan to be targeted, he had compromised the entire operation, resulting in multiple American casualties. This changes our approach, she decided. The surgeon anticipates standard doctrine establishment of firing positions based on maximum coverage principles. But what if we invert the methodology? Meaning, instead of positioning for optimal coverage, I'll position for optical deception, Alexis explained, using terrain to create false indicators of my location while firing from unexpected positions. Misdirection, Wilson understood immediately. He'll look for you where doctrine says you should be, not where you actually are. Alexis began modifying her plan. The challenge would be maintaining accuracy from suboptimal positions, but tactical advantage could outweigh technical disadvantages. As she navigated the treacherous landscape toward her first firing position, Wilson shared a final piece of advice. Victor Orlov isn't just a skilled shooter, he explained. He's pathologically obsessed with being the best. When your father outshot him during joint training in Germany, Orlov suffered what CIA psychologists called a narcissistic injury. You're saying this 30-year vendetta began because my father beat him at his own game, Alexis summarized. Your father didn't just beat him, he humiliated him before Joint Special Operations Command, proved American methodologies could surpass Soviet techniques. For a man whose identity was built around being the world's deadliest sniper, it was unbearable. That's why he trained me, she realized. By defeating me, he symbolically defeats my father again. Which means he'll anticipate your every move, counter every technique because he taught you those techniques. Alexis reached her first firing position, a narrow crevice between boulders offering clear line of sight while concealing her profile. Not every technique, Chief, she replied, assembling the Che-tac with swift precision. My father taught me something Orlov never understood. What's that? That precision isn't just physics and calculation, she explained. It's intuition, connection, becoming one with the environment rather than just measuring it. Through her scope, she acquired the first target, a sniper nest 950 meters away. Russian-made Dragunov SVD rifle specialized desert camouflage, Chinese-manufactured spotting scope. In position for first elimination, she transmitted. Poseidon team stand by for shadow corridor initiation. As she prepared for the first trigger pull, the surgeon's voice returned. I know what you're planning, Alexis. The shadow corridor concept is clever, a technique I taught you in Wyoming. But you've overlooked one critical variable. A chill ran down her spine. How had he identified her plans so precisely? Your father made the same mistake in Mogadishu, he continued. He believed his understanding of the environment was superior to mine. His arrogance cost 12 American lives, not just his own. The deliberate misinformation, 12 deaths instead of actual 4, was calculated to introduce emotional distraction. Disregard all transmissions from hostile source, she keyed briefly, proceeding with elimination sequence in 3 minutes. Wilson's voice provided steadying presence. Whatever happens next, remember you've already succeeded where the surgeon failed. You transformed his teaching into something better, something honorable. Alexis drew a deep, controlled breath, centering herself completely. Years of training, decades of preparation, generations of legacy, all converging on this single point in time. Operation commencing in 60 seconds, she announced calmly. May God have mercy on their souls because I won't have any for theirs. The first shot broke midday stillness like thunder. Through her scope, Alexis watched the target crumple, instantly perfect hit at 950 meters. Before the echo died, she was already moving toward her second firing position. Target 1 eliminated, she reported tersely, moving to position 2. The Chaytak settled against her shoulder once more as she acquired the second target, a sniper now alert scanning frantically for the source of the first shot. Crack! The second shot echoed across the valley. Target 2 eliminated, moving to position 3. In the command aircraft, Wilson watched through real-time satellite imagery. Alexis appeared as a heat signature, moving with remarkable speed across rugged terrain. She's actually doing it, Reynolds murmured, skepticism replaced by amazement. She's not just shooting, Wilson replied. She's conducting a symphony. The third shot was more challenging, 1,200 meters across heat-shimmering valley. Alexis compensated for mirage effect, adjusting for visual distortion caused by rising hot air. Crack! The third target collapsed. Target 3 eliminated, moving to position 4. This movement was most dangerous, a dash across relatively open ground. Remaining snipers fired blindly toward her general area. A bullet whined past her ear. Another struck rock near her foot, sending stone fragments slicing into her leg. Taking fire, continuing movement. Below, Hayes and his team waited. The shadow corridor was forming a wedge-shaped blind spot in enemy coverage that would allow their approach. Alexis reached her fourth position, blood soaking her pant leg. The fourth target was moving, attempting to relocate. A moving target at 1,400 meters presented new calculations, lead distance, motion vectors, timing. Breathe, adjust, squeeze. Crack! Target 4 eliminated, moving to position 5. The fifth position required climbing a near vertical rock face. Halfway up, disaster struck. Rock gave way beneath her hand, sending her sliding downward. Her rifle caught on an outcropping, jerking her to painful halt. Delay, she grunted, pulling herself upward again. Resuming movement. The lost seconds were critical. The enemy would be adapting, adjusting defensive posture to account for eliminated positions. With final effort, she hauled herself onto the ledge. Target 5 was hunkered in reinforced position, presenting a target the size of playing card at 1,350 meters. Crack! Target 5 eliminated, moving to position 6. 3 more to go. Time was becoming her enemy. The window for SEAL approach narrowed with each passing second. Begin approach vector now, she transmitted to Hayes. I'll eliminate remaining Overwatch as you move. Negative. Protocol requires all Overwatch eliminated before assault phase. Protocol won't matter if we lose time window, Alexis countered. The corridor is 70% established. After a brief pause, Poseidon moving. From elevated position, Alexis could see SEAL team begin advanced 6 figures moving across terrain that until moments ago had been killing zone. The sixth target had repositioned behind substantial cover, leaving only rifle barrel visible. She adjusted aim for small rock face 2 feet left. The specialized round would strike rock at precise angle, creating stone fragments functioning as lethal secondary projectiles. Crack! The shot struck exactly as intended. Through scope, Alexis watched deadly ricochet tear into hidden sniper's position. Target 6 eliminated, moving to position 7. The 7th position required descending ridge. Speed now outweighed stealth. The SEAL team was committed vulnerable without complete Overwatch elimination. Reaching 7th position, Alexis deployed rifle with desperate speed. The 7th target was most difficult, yet a sniper in rock crevice 1,600 meters away, presenting target barely larger than human eye. Afternoon winds had intensified, creating variable gusts, defying prediction. Alexis licked finger and held it up, feeling rather than measuring air currents. Breathe, feel, become one with bullet's path. Crack. For terrible moment, nothing happened. Then target slumped forward, bullet finding mark through opening barely larger than round itself. Target 7 eliminated, moving to final position. The 8th position was most exposed yet bare outcropping, offering only possible angle on final sniper nest. It would leave her completely vulnerable, but last sniper had reinforced bunker with firing slits covering compound's main entrance. As Alexis moved toward this suicidal position, Wilson's voice came with uncharacteristic urgency. Thermal imaging has identified ninth position. Ridgeline directly above your current position, approximately 300 meters. Direct line of sight on your approach to eighth position. The realization struck with cold clarity. The surgeon had anticipated her entire plan, positioning himself to eliminate her at exact moment she would be most vulnerable. I'm compromised, she stated flatly. Poseidon team final overwatch position remains active with direct coverage of breach point. Hayes's response was immediate, adjusting to secondary breach point east wall. But Alexis knew this was exactly what the surgeon wanted, forcing SEAL team into less favorable approach, channeling them into pre-sighted killing zones. Can you get me direct visual on ninth position, she asked. Sending thermal overlay to tactical display now. Image appeared on screen at her wrist. Clear heat signature in concealed position, and distinctive outline of man with rifle positioned with perfect sight lines to both her planned route and compound entrance. Alexis studied terrain between her position and 8 sniper nest. No covered approach existed. Then her eyes caught detail on thermal image small blind spot created by rock formation between the surgeon's position and target. I need diversion, she decided, something to draw the surgeon's attention for approximately 20 seconds. She removed small device from tactical vest, remote-triggered infrared strobe for emergency extraction marking. On my mark, trigger strobe. I'll move during momentary distraction. Alexis took deep breath, mentally mapping route 30-meter sprint across exposed terrain to blind spot, followed by precision shot at 8th position. Execute. Strobe activated, creating brilliant infrared signature invisible to naked eye, but obvious through night vision or thermal optics. Almost immediately shot rang from the surgeon's position, striking area around decoy. Alexis was already moving, pushing body to absolute limit. 15 meters, 20 meters, 25. Another shot rang out. The surgeon realized deception and tracked her movement. Round struck rock near head, showering her with fragments. 30 meters. She reached blind spot, tiny area of safety and landscape of death. Chaytak deployed in fluid motion. Through scope, she acquired 8th sniper nest 1,800 meters away, occupied by shooter tracking SEAL team's movement toward eastern wall. Most difficult shot yet, extreme distance, shifting winds, psychological pressure of knowing. The surgeon was adjusting to acquire her again. No time for elaborate calculations. This shot would come from heart as much as mine. Crack! Target 8 eliminated. Shadow corridor complete. Poseidon team clear approach to primary breach point. Hayes acknowledged immediately. Redirecting to primary breach. Alexis allowed moment of satisfaction. Against overwhelming odds, she had eliminated all 8 overwatch positions, creating promised path for assault team. But personal mission confrontation with the surgeon was just beginning. Slow mocking applause came through radio. Impressive little ghost, the surgeon's voice purred. Your father would be proud. But you've overlooked most important lesson I taught you. And what's that? Alexis asked, moving to more protected position. Always save one bullet for yourself, he replied coldly. 9th shot rang from above, finding mark with terrifying precision. Pain exploded through Alexis's body as round tore through left shoulder, spinning her violently to ground. Chaytak fell from grasp, clattering against rocks. Ghost Hunter hit, she gasped into radio. I am combat ineffective. As darkness threatened consciousness, she heard Wilson's desperate voice, and below in Valley First sounds of SEAL assault on compound. Mission continued, but world dissolved into red haze of pain. Last thing she heard before consciousness slipped away was the surgeon's voice, intimate and triumphant. Like father, like daughter, history repeats itself after all. Consciousness returned in painful fragments. First searing agony in left shoulder, then warm wetness of blood soaking tactical gear. Finally, distant sounds of combat automatic weapons grenades shouted commands. Eyes fluttered open to sky turned blood red by setting sun. How long? Unconscious minutes, hours. Ghost Hunter, do you copy? Wilson's voice tense with worry. With trembling fingers, she activated transmitter. Ghost Hunter, still operational. Thank God, medical status. Alexis assessed wound with clinical detachment. Bullet entered left shoulder from above, passing through joint with devastating effect. Exit wound on back, significant blood loss. Combat effectiveness severely compromised. GSW left shoulder, through and through, bleeding controlled. Poseidon status, she asked, professional focus reasserting despite pain. Compound breached. Hayes reports 11 hostages secured, 1 still missing, Dr. Chambers. With supreme effort, she pushed to sitting position. Chaytak rifle lay nearby, apparently undamaged. The surgeon, location, Unknown, no visual confirmation inside compound. Hayes suspects relocation with Dr. Chambers to secondary position. Alexis's tactical instincts screamed warning. The surgeon wouldn't abandon carefully constructed trap without contingency. This entire scenario had been orchestrated specifically to draw her in. He's still here, she stated with certainty, watching, waiting for final act. Using rifle as makeshift crutch, she struggled to feet. Pain transformed into dull roar at edge of consciousness present, but no longer commanding attention. Ghost Hunter medical status requires immediate evacuation, Wilson insisted. Negative. Mission incomplete while the surgeon remains active and Dr. Chambers remains missing. She began moving toward new vantage point. Through scope, she surveyed battlefield below. SEAL team secured main compound building, evidenced by operators at key defensive positions. Sporadic gunfire indicated pockets of resistance still being eliminated. Memory surfaced through pain training years ago. When cornered, create final demonstration of superiority. Leave pursuers with lesson they'll never forget. Inform Hayes that the surgeon rigged compound. Likely explosive devices on timer or remote detonator. How can you be sure? Wilson questioned. Because it's what he taught me to do, Alexis explained grimly. New thermal imagery appeared on wrist display heat signature, moving rapidly through tunnel system beneath compound. Underground egress route, Wilson identified. 2 heat signatures, one likely Dr. Chambers based on size and movement pattern. The surgeon escaping with highest value hostage. Compound explosives would eliminate evidence, possibly kill SEAL operators, create perfect distraction for extraction. I'm pursuing the surgeon, she decided instantly. Negative, you're wounded and significantly outmatched. If the surgeon reaches extraction point with Dr. Chambers, we lose both hostage and opportunity to eliminate target. Using terrain for concealment, she navigated toward ravine indicated in thermal imagery. Chaitak felt twice as heavy, pulling agonizingly at wounded shoulder. EOD team located multiple explosive devices throughout compound, Hayes reported. Professional setup on timers, 15 minutes until detonation. Hostages secure, Alexis asked tersely. Affirmative, 11 packages ready for extraction. Still no sign of Dr. Chambers. Satellite shows small clearing 2 kilometers east that could serve as helicopter LZ, Hayes continued. Intermittent communication signatures consistent with aerial extraction. Through sheer will, Alexis reached ridgeline overlooking suspected extraction point plateau, nestled between towering rock formations. Perfect for helicopter touchdowns sheltered from observation. Using legs and torso to stabilize massive rifle, she established shooting position, compensating for wounded shoulder. Through scope, she confirmed the surgeon's presence. Victor Orlov stood at edge of clearing. Beside him, Dr. Chambers knelt with hands bound, fear evident even at distance. Range 2,100 meters. Beyond effective range of weapon system, beyond capability of all but handful of snipers worldwide. Thermal confirms helicopter inbound from east approximately 5 minutes out. As she made ballistic calculations, new transmission crackled through radio open frequency accessible to all operators. I know you're watching, little ghost. The surgeon's voice calm despite circumstances. One final lesson before we part ways. Through scope, Alexis watched as barrel of sidearm pressed against Dr. Chambers' head. The lesson is simple: you failed, just like your father failed in Somalia, just like your mother failed 5 years ago. The Morgan family legacy is one of noble failure. Don't let him get to you, Wilson warned. He's trying to force premature shot. You have one chance, Alexis, the surgeon continued. One impossible shot to save this woman's life. But we both know you won't take it. Risk of hitting hostage too great. He was right. At this distance, with compromised physical state, margin for error measured in millimeters. Another option, the surgeon proposed. Surrender yourself, walk into clearing unarmed, and I'll release hostage. He's lying, Wilson said immediately. Moment you show yourself, you're dead and hostage with you. As Alexis wrestled with impossible dilemma, father's voice whispered from memory words from journal, describing technique developed before death. The ambient shot. When direct targeting compromise, consider environment as ally. Bullets need not strike target directly to achieve desired effect. Understanding bloomed in pain-clouded mind. She adjusted aim away from the surgeon and Dr. Chambers, focusing on rock face approximately 3 feet left. Specialized round would strike rock with enough force to create shrapnel effect, not precise enough for kill shot, but potentially sufficient for momentary distraction. Preparing final solution, she transmitted. Poseidon team stand by for immediate response to eastern extraction point. We're 15 minutes from your position, Hayes replied. Whatever you're planning, we won't reach you in time. Not asking for rescue, Alexis clarified. Requesting follow-up to secure hostage after I create opportunity. Helicopter now visible on horizon. 3 minutes before extraction. Alexis made final calculations compensating for crosswinds, bullet drop over extreme distance, diminished powder velocity and thinning mountain air. The impossible shot is the only shot worth taking, her father had written. She exhaled slowly, centered, being in perfect stillness between heartbeats, in squeezed trigger. Chaitak roared defiance against impossibility, massive .408 round hurtling toward destiny at nearly 3 times speed of sound. For 3 eternal seconds, Alexis held breath, watching through scope as physics and fate collided in gathering darkness. Bullets struck exactly as intended, impacting Rockface with devastating force. Resulting explosion of stone fragments erupted like shrapnel, spraying the surgeon and Dr. Chambers with debris. The momentary distraction achieved purpose. The surgeon instinctively turned from unexpected threat weapon, momentarily diverted from hostage's head. In that fraction of a second, Dr. Chambers rolled away from captor, creating separation. Target engaged. Alexis reported cycling Chaitak's bolt for follow-up. Hostage mobile temporarily clear of threat. The surgeon recovered quickly, diving for cover behind rocky outcropping, scanning ridgelines for Alexis's position. Helicopter less than minute from touchdown. If the surgeon reached extraction, both he and potentially critical nuclear information would disappear forever. Through scope, she located him in covered position, only small portion of shoulder and arm, visible as he prepared to dash for helicopter. "This is for my father," she whispered, finger tightening on trigger. "This is for my mother. For every American operator who died because of your betrayal." Chaitak spoke once more, thunderous report echoing across mountains. At 2,100 meters with shattered shoulder and fading light, Alexis Morgan made shot that would redefine what military snipers considered possible. Round found mark with unerring precision, striking the surgeon's exposed shoulder and continuing through to torso. Through scope, she watched him stumble, clearly wounded, but still mobile. "Target hit, but still operational," she reported, frustration evident. To astonishment, the surgeon turned directly toward her position, despite extreme distance. Even wounded, raised his own rifle, gesture of acknowledgement between 2 masters of same deadly art. "Ghost Hunter, incoming fire, take cover." Wilson's warning came split second before the surgeon's shot cracked past her position. The exchange that followed entered Special Operations legend, 2 elite snipers, both wounded, engaging at extraordinary distance as darkness fell across Afghan mountains. Alexis fired again, 3rd shot in extraordinary duel. Round struck closer to center mass and the surgeon faltered significantly. His return fire went wide. Helicopter hovered above landing zone, crew hesitant to touch down amidst gunfire. With supreme effort, the surgeon began moving toward aircraft, leaving visible blood trail. Dr. Chambers had taken refuge behind boulder, temporarily safe but still trapped. "One more shot," Alexis muttered, gathering fading strength for final attempt. Chaitak aligned once more, body functioning on muscle memory and determination as consciousness threatened to slip away. Blood-soaked entire left side of tactical gear vision, narrowing to dim tunnel focused entirely on scope's reticle. The surgeon nearly at helicopter. 10 more seconds and he would escape. Alexis exhaled, finger taking up trigger slack with last precision failing body could muster. Crack. Final round flew true. Through scope, Alexis watched the surgeon spin violently as bullet found mark, driving him to ground mere feet from extraction. "Target down," she reported, voice barely above whisper as strength deserted her. "Repeat, target down." Helicopter immediately aborted landing, climbing rapidly and banking away. Pilot clearly decided situation too compromised. "QRF inbound to your position and extraction point. Hold tight." Alexis heard words but could no longer respond. Chaitak slipped from grasp as darkness closed around consciousness. Final thought before surrendering to oblivion was not of victory or vengeance, but completion mission begun by father 30 years ago, finally fulfilled by daughter. In command aircraft, Wilson watched Alexis's life signs with growing alarm. Heart rate dropping, blood pressure falling to dangerous levels. Medical team still 10 minutes out. "Stay with us, Ghost Hunter," he urged into radio. "Your father's watching and damned if he isn't proud." Reynolds led quick reaction force up treacherous ridge, pushing team to physical limits. What should have been hour-long ascent, they attempted in 20 minutes. 5 minutes to Ghost Hunter's position, he reported. Medical status. Critical. Telemetry shows significant blood loss. Unconscious but still with us. Reynolds had started day skeptical of Alexis's abilities. Now racing against time to save her life, respect transformed by witness performance. At extraction point, Hayes approached fallen form of the surgeon with tactical caution. Target secured. Hayes reported applying restraints to motionless form. Still alive but critical. Multiple GSWs, significant blood loss. Dr. Chambers safely recovered, shaken but unharmed. Nuclear physicist already being evacuated with other hostages. Bring him in alive, if possible, Richards instructed. Intelligence values his knowledge of terrorist networks. The surgeon's eyes fluttered open briefly, recognition flashing across features. She's better than her father. He gasped, blood bubbling at lips. Tell her. I knew she would be. Before Hayes could respond, the surgeon convulsed violently. Hayes leapt back instinctively, recognizing signs of dead man switch. Suicide protocol, he shouted, dragging team member clear. Just as the surgeon's body went limp, fast-acting toxin completing what Alexis's bullets began. Target eliminated, Hayes reported tersely. Self-administered toxin, no intelligence recovery. On Ridgeline, Reynolds and team reached Alexis's position. The legendary sniper lay unconscious beside rifle rocks, stained dark with blood. Ghost Hunter located, initiating emergency medical procedures. Medic worked efficiently, establishing IV access, administering plasma expanders, applying fresh trauma dressings. Lost at least 3 units of blood, pressure dropping, need immediate CASVAC. Extraction helicopter diverted to your position, ETA 4 minutes. As they waited, Reynolds noticed something clutched in Alexis's hand, small, worn leather notebook. Father's journal carried through combat as talisman of purpose. Carefully, he secured it in tactical vest, ensuring peace of legacy remained with her. Distinctive thump of helicopter rotors grew steadily louder. Not just any medical evacuation commands from highest levels prioritized Alexis's retrieval above all operational concerns. Hang in there, Lieutenant, Reynolds urged. Still got range record to break back at Coronado. Ghost Hunter en route to field hospital, he transmitted as helicopter lifted off. Been an honor to serve with her. Honor was our son, Wilson replied. We just witnessed history. At compound, Hayes retrieved item from the surgeon's body, small flash drive in protective case. Found intelligence material on target. Appears to be digital storage device. Secure and deliver to command immediately, Richards instructed. Hayes sealed device in evidence bag, unaware it contained answers to questions haunting Morgan family for 30 years and secrets that would shake foundations of American intelligence operations. An evacuation helicopter trauma surgeon worked frantically to stabilize Alexis. Vital signs fluctuated dangerously, body hovering at threshold between life and death. Stay with us, Lieutenant. Mission's complete. Time to come home. Aboard command aircraft, Wilson sat monitoring Alexis's medical telemetry with focus of man watching own daughter fight for survival. She'll make it, Commander Richards assured. She's Mark Morgan's daughter, after all. As aircraft began return journey, Wilson envisioned training programs emerging from mission. The Morgan method. New generation of precision shooters who understand impossible shot is sometimes only shot worth taking. In field hospital's operating theater, surgeons fought to repair Alexis's shattered shoulder. Damage, extensive shattered bone, severed tendons, compromised nerve pathways. Will she shoot again? Lead surgeon was asked. If anyone can overcome this injury, someone with her determination. As surgeons work at flash drive recovered from, the surgeon analyzed by intelligence specialists in secure facility. Discovery sent shockwaves through command structure evidence of decades-long conspiracy within American intelligence agencies, tentacles reaching into highest echelons of government. The surgeon hadn't operated alone, part of shadowy organization known only as the Directive, former intelligence and special operations personnel, gone rogue selling skills and knowledge to highest bidder. Among names implicated Admiral Jonathan Westfield, current Director of Special Operations Command, and man who authorized original Somalia mission in 1993. Pieces finally falling into place. Why Mark Morgan specifically targeted in Mogadishu. Why Emma Morgan eliminated 5 years ago. Why Alexis drawn into elaborate trap. They hadn't just eliminated threats. They protected secrets that could destroy careers, topple administrations, and rewrite narrative of American foreign policy for past 3 decades. As intelligence processed Alexis, Morgan fought own battle in post-operative recovery. Body pushed beyond normal human endurance will test it against ultimate adversary, death itself. Wilson maintained vigil beside hospital bed in recovery ward. Weathered face, usually impassive mask of professional detachment, now betrayed depth of concern. "You kept promise, Chief," Alexis whispered, eyes fluttering open briefly. "Protected me after all." Wilson took her hand gently. "Your father would have done same for my child. Rest now, mission's complete." As Alexis drifted back into healing sleep, Wilson reflected on journey bringing them to this moment, 30-year circle, closing with both justice and revelation. The surgeon dead but larger conspiracy represented remained threat tendrils woven through institutions they had sworn to serve. This wasn't end of Alexis Morgan's story, merely closing one chapter and opening another, challenging not just physical recovery, but understanding of nation and institutions she pledged to defend. In drug-induced dreams, Alexis saw father as imagined in final moments in Mogadishu, fighting against impossible odds to protect brothers in arms. He nodded with silent approval, passing torch of unfinished mission to daughter's capable hands. The legacy sniper had fulfilled inheritance. But greatest challenges still lay ahead. Military transport plane hummed steadily across Atlantic, carrying precious human cargo back to American soil. In specially equipped medical bay, Alexis Morgan drifted between consciousness and sedated sleep, body beginning long journey of healing. 6 days had passed since Afghanistan operation. 6 days since shots redefining boundaries of military marksmanship. 6 days since finally confronting and eliminating man responsible for parents' deaths. Wilson sat beside her, presence constant despite demands of operational debriefings and after-action reviews. Something changed, an old warrior softening of professional detachment, reawakening of human connections suppressed through decades of combat. "The flash drive, did they recover it?" Alexis murmured, voice rough from intubation during surgery. "Rest, Lieutenant. Plenty of time for debriefing when stateside." But Alexis was too well trained in reading subtle cues. "They found something, didn't they? Something beyond the surgeon." After moments' hesitation, Wilson nodded slightly. "Intelligence still processing data. Initial findings suggest larger organization behind the surgeon's operations." Codename the directive. "American?" Alexis asked, though already suspecting answer. "Some," Wilson confirmed grimly. "Former intelligence, special operations, high-level military. People with access, training, and moral flexibility to sell both to highest bidder." This confirmation aligned with suspicions Alexis harbored since discovering mother's research files years earlier. The surgeon hadn't been lone wolf, part of sophisticated network operating in shadows of legitimate government operations for decades. The directive appears to have originated during late Cold War. Wilson continued, keeping voice low despite privacy of medical transport. Former CIA military intelligence and special operators who believed official channels too constrained by legal and moral boundaries. "Shadow government," Alexis whispered, implications staggering. "More like shadow military industrial complex," Wilson corrected. "For right price provided intelligence training and direct action capabilities to anyone from foreign governments to terrorist organizations. Always with sufficient distance and deniability to protect core membership. My father discovered them," she concluded, "in Somalia. Why he was targeted." Wilson nodded slowly. "Evidence suggests he intercepted communications indicating American assets deliberately compromised. When collecting proof for command, the directive activated the surgeon to eliminate him. And my mother continued investigation until they killed her too. Got closer than anyone to exposing them," Wilson confirmed. "Files from the surgeon's drive include surveillance reports on her activities right until death. And now they know about me, what I've discovered." Wilson's expression hardened. "Which is why transported under maximum security protocols. Official record states Lieutenant Morgan critically wounded and evacuated to Germany. Only handful know you're returning to States." "Hayes and Reynolds," she asked, concerned for SEAL operators who witnessed truth firsthand. "Sequestered for debriefing at undisclosed location," Wilson assured. "Families quietly relocated as precaution." Alexis' closed eyes, weight of responsibility settling heavily upon wounded shoulders. Personal quest for justice evolved into something far larger, potential national security crisis threatening integrity of American military and intelligence operations worldwide. "Get rest," Wilson advised, seeing exhaustion etched in features. "When we land decisions to make difficult ones." As Alexis drifted back into medicated sleep, dreams filled not with closure expected after eliminating the surgeon, but with shadowy figures in government offices, faceless operators in foreign countries, and growing realization that father's mission, now her mission, far from complete. The war had only just begun. Naval Medical Center, Bethesda, 3 weeks after Afghanistan. Lieutenant Morgan, I need to be direct. The damage to your shoulder is extensive. The bullet fragmented the scapula, severed two major tendons, and caused significant nerve damage. Alexis sat motionless, her left arm immobilized in a complex medical brace. Sunlight through blinds cast prison bar shadows across her hospital gown. 3 weeks of surgeries had left her body weakened, but her resolve hardened. "What's your assessment?" she asked, voice carrying the precision that defined her professional life. The therapist, Dr. Mitchell, according to her nameplate, consulted the chart. Most patients with these injuries would face medical discharge. Full range of motion is unlikely to return. Precision motor control will be significantly compromised. And for shooting, Dr. Mitchell hesitated. Competitive or professional shooting would be unrealistic. I'm sorry. Alexis nodded, once processing this information with the same methodical approach she applied on the firing range. Outside, Master Chief Wilson waited, his weathered face masking the guilt he carried, failing to protect Mark Morgan's daughter as promised decades earlier. Dr. Mitchell emerged, shaking her head slyly at Wilson's questioning glance. "She took it well. Too well. That's not always a good sign." Wilson understood immediately. Alexis was compartmentalizing the technique that allowed snipers to function in battle chaos. Inside, he found Alexis standing at the window, staring at the grounds with focused intensity. Her athletic frame now bordered on gaunt, but her eyes remained unchanged, analytical, seeing patterns where others saw chaos. "They want to medical board me," she said without turning. "Standard procedure for injuries this severe," Wilson replied. "You completed the mission. 12 hostages rescued. The surgeon eliminated. You've earned retirement." Now she turned, fire igniting behind her eyes, and the directive. "The organization that killed my father, my mother, that continues operating within our government. Is that mission complete, Chief?" "Intelligence is still analyzing data from the surgeon's flash drive," Wilson said carefully. "Findings suggest connections to at least 3 serving flag officers and several former agency directors. This goes deeper than anyone anticipated." "And they'll bury it," Alexis stated. "Just like Somalia, just like my mother's investigations. They'll classify it beyond reach, remove evidence, eliminate witnesses." Wilson couldn't argue. The initial excitement over the intelligence breakthrough had transformed into institutional silence. Debriefings became increasingly narrow, focused on tactical details rather than strategic implications. "I won't let that happen," Wilson said, meeting her gaze. "I've submitted retirement papers, effective immediately." Surprise flickered across Alexis's face, first genuine emotion in weeks. "Why?" "Because some missions don't end when you return to base," Wilson replied. "Your father understood that. Your mother understood that. Now I understand too." He reached into his jacket and removed a small, encrypted tablet. "Command doesn't know I have this. Complete copy of the surgeon's files, everything recovered from the flash drive. Names, operations, financial trails. 30 years of the directive's activities." Alexis took the tablet with her good hand. "This is treason, Chief." "No," Wilson corrected firmly. "This is loyalty to our oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The directive represents cancer within our institutions. That isn't the country I've spent 40 years defending." Alexis activated the tablet screen, illuminating with encrypted files. Operational reports, surveillance logs, financial transactions. Personnel fields, an entire shadow organization documented in cold precision. "Why give this to me?" "Because you're Mark Morgan's daughter," Wilson replied simply. "Because you've proven worthy of his legacy. Because you're the only person I trust to finish what he started." The tablet pinged with an incoming message. A video file appeared, time-stamped 30 minutes earlier. The Intelligence Analysis Center at Langley. Men in tactical gear systematically removing computer equipment and files. "They're purging the evidence," Wilson said grimly. A second message appeared, coordinates a time in a simple phrase. "Ghost Hunter. Surgical precision required. The directive knows. 1900 hours." Alexis looked up at Wilson, decision already made. "I need my rifle." Wilson's expression hardened. "Your CHATAC was officially logged as damaged beyond repair. Unofficially, it's in a secure location with your equipment." "The therapist said I'll never shoot professionally again," Alexis called as Wilson moved toward the door. Wilson paused. "What do you think your father would say about that?" For the first time in weeks, a ghost of a smile crossed Alexis's face. "He'd say the impossible shot is the only shot worth taking." "Exactly. We have work to do, Ghost Hunter." Outside the medical center, Wilson made a secure call. "She's in. Prepare the safe house and equipment. Find Reynolds. Will need his expertise." Reynolds is secure. Transport arranged for 2,200 hours. What about her injury? Wilson watched an ambulance arrive, lights flashing silently, reminder of human fragility and resilience. Her body may be damaged, but her spirit is intact. Sometimes that's all that matters. The safe house, a nondescript cabin in Virginia's Blue Ridge Mountains. Remote enough for privacy, close enough for operational necessity. Alexis sat on the porch, the Chaytak balanced across her lap as she field-stripped it despite her injured shoulder. The familiar weight brought comfort, connecting her to her father's legacy and her own identity. "How's it feel?" Reynolds asked, leaning against the railing. The SEAL operator had changed since Afghanistan, less skeptical, more deferential. "Like an old friend," Alexis replied, "but also a stranger. My body doesn't respond the way it used to." Wilson mentions you're developing a new shooting technique. Necessity drives innovation. The nerve damage affects trigger control, so I'm adapting a pressure plate system using different muscle groups. Wilson emerged with coffee. 3 weeks into their unofficial operation, the former Master Chief had transformed civilian clothes, beard growth, watchful eyes of a man operating outside the system he had served for decades. "The new firing mechanism is ready for testing. Hayes sent custom parts through our secure channel. Should achieve sub-MOA accuracy despite shoulder limitations." "Any progress identifying a leadership structure?" Alexis asked. Files point to Admiral Westfield as operational director of the directive. Financial records show payments through Cayman accounts dating back 15 years. But he's just the current face. The organization predates him by decades. "The real question," Reynolds interjected, "is why they're accelerating operations. The Langley purge was just the beginning. They've reassigned 6 senior intelligence analysts this week. Something has them spooked." "Us," Alexis stated simply. "They know we have the files. They know we survived. They know we're coming. Which means our window is closing. Westfield testifies before the Senate Intelligence Committee in 4 days. Our best opportunity." "Move how?" Reynolds asked. "We can't arrest the director of Special Operations Command based on stolen files." "We can expose him publicly," Alexis replied. "Force an investigation the directive can't contain." "The Senate hearing, will it be public?" "Partially. Opening statements televised before moving to classified session." "I need line of sight to the hearing room," Alexis decided. "Not for a shot, for surveillance. If Westfield realizes he's exposed, his reaction could confirm guilt." "The Capitol complex has counter-sniper teams covering every approach. You'd never get into position undetected." "I don't need to be undetected. I need to be official." Wilson caught on immediately. "Capitol Police Special Response Team. They maintain overwatch during high-profile hearings. With the right credentials, we could put Ghost Hunter in position with full authorization," Reynolds finished. "But those credentials would need to be perfect." "Hayes can help with that," Wilson replied. "He has contacts who share our concerns about the directive." The makeshift shooting range behind the cabin was crude but functional, targets from 100 to 600 meters. Reynolds helped Alexis set up the Chaytak, now modified with custom stock and pressure plate trigger system, allowing her to fire using her right hand rather than damaged left shoulder. "The balance is different," Reynolds observed. "Center of gravity shifted rearward." "Manageable," Alexis replied, settling into position. The new stance felt awkward, body alignment wrong according to traditional doctrine. But traditional methods were no longer an option. She squeezed, the rifle roared. 2 inches right of center, Reynolds reported. "Respectable, but not up to your standards. Adjust pressure sensitivity, reduced by 20%. By the 5th shot, rounds were striking center mass consistently. Ready for 300 meters. The process repeated, shoot, adjust, shoot again. With each distance increase, challenges multiplied. Wind factors became more significant, modified position, revealed new limitations. Pain grew more distracting. At 600 meters, sweat beaded on Alexis's forehead despite cool mountain air. "One final shot," she said, voice tight with controlled pain. Wind picking up 15 knots, gusting to 20. Difficult conditions. "Good. We won't have a perfect conditions in DC." She settled into final position, visualizing the sequence. Breathe, hold, apply pressure, follow through. The Chaytak fired its report, echoing across the valley. Reynolds studied the target through his scope, then turned to Alexis, respect evident. Dead center, half-inch group at 600 meters with modified system and compromised position. That shouldn't be possible. It wasn't, Alexis acknowledged, until it was. Hayes came through, Wilson announced. Capitol Police credentials prepared. You'll be Officer Alexandra Miller, counter-sniper team assigned to Senate Protective Detail. Timeline, 48 hours until insertion. Westfield testifies following morning. Alexis nodded, mind plotting trajectories, angles, contingencies. Not for a kill shot, those days were behind her, but for precision surveillance that would expose the directive to public scrutiny. Later that night, as Reynolds and Wilson slept, Alexis sat alone on the porch, her father's journal open in her lap. The worn pages contained not just shooting techniques, but observations of a man who sensed corruption within his command structure. On the final page, written days before his death in Somalia, when institutions we serve become corrupted, the true patriot must stand apart. Loyalty to the oath, not the organization. Truth over tradition, justice over expediency. These principles define us when all else fails. Alexis closed the journal, decision reaffirmed. In 2 days, she would stand in the shadows of power to complete her father's final mission. The impossible shot awaited. Washington, D.C. gleamed in early morning sunlight, Capitol Dome radiant against clear blue sky. From the unmarked Capitol Police vehicle, Alexis surveyed the security perimeter with professional detachment. Identification ready. Wilson asked from the driver's seat, his credentials identifying him as Supervisory Officer William Grant. Alexis nodded, fake ID badge, a constant reminder of their precarious position. One mistake, one system flag, one recognition, and the operation would collapse. Remember, Reynolds advised from the back seat, your Alexandra Miller counter-sniper team transferred from FBI hostage rescue team. Exemplary service, but no exceptional achievements that might draw attention. Understood. Alexis replied, adjusting her collar to ensure shoulder brace remained concealed. Pain medication dulled discomfort, but maintaining the charade required vigilance. Final comms check. Alexis touched her nearly invisible earpiece. Channel secure. Equipment status. Modified observation kit complete. The specialized case contained not a sniper rifle, but high-powered observation system, CHATAC scope, mounted on stabilized platform with recording capabilities. The checkpoint guard examined their credentials. I have a SRT deployment authorized, but I'm not seeing Officer Miller on the roster. Wilson didn't hesitate. She should be there. Last-minute addition from HRT liaison. Check with Watch Commander Phillips. He authorized the personnel change at 0600. The guard made a brief call. You're cleared. Proceed to staging area B for equipment verification. The staging area supervisor, Lieutenant Farrell, mid-40s, former military bearing, approached as they unloaded equipment. You must be the additional counter-sniper element I was informed about. Wilson nodded. Officer Grant Miller and Reynolds, counter-sniper team assigned to Senate Intelligence Committee hearing. Farrell's gaze lingered on Alexis. Officer Miller, you're new to the unit. Yes, sir. Transfer from HRT, specialized in Overwatch operations. The next 15 minutes were excruciating. Each piece of gear, examined serial numbers, checked communication systems, tested. Non-standard configuration, Farrell noted, examining the customized mount. Medical accommodation, shoulder injury during HRT deployment. Farrell made a notation. You're cleared for position echo southeast corner of Russell Building, 6th floor. Standard counter-sniper protocols apply. As they gathered equipment, Farrell added, Admiral Westfield's security detail has implemented additional measures. Expect heightened scrutiny. The implication was clear. The directive was taking no chances. Position Echo was a small maintenance room with window overlooking the plaza where Westfield's motorcade would arrive, providing clear line of sight to the hearing room entrance. Time check, Wilson announced. 0730 hours. Westfield's motorcade scheduled for 0900. Security sweep begins at 0800. Alexis calibrated the observation system. Through high-powered optics, she could clearly see the hearing room entrance 300 meters away. Observation only until Westfield enters building. Once he's proceeding to hearing room, I'll activate recording system. And if he detects surveillance, he won't. But if he does, his reaction alone could be telling. The throbbing in her shoulder had intensified despite medication reminder of her confrontation with the surgeon, physical limitations that would have ended most snipers' careers. But she wasn't most snipers. Security team approaching, Reynolds warned. Standard sweep pattern, starting from North Wing. 10 minutes later, a knock announced the security team. Wilson presented their credentials. Purpose of deployment. Overwatch for Senate Intelligence Committee hearing. Standard security protocol for high-profile testimony. Be advised, Admiral Westfield's security detail will conduct secondary verification approximately 15 minutes before his arrival. After they departed, Reynolds released a tense breath. Secondary verification, that's not standard protocol. That's the directive, ensuring their man is protected from all angles. At 0845, Wilson tensed. Westfield's motorcade approaching perimeter, 5 minutes ahead of schedule. Tactical adjustment, Reynolds assessed. Alexis activated recording system. Secondary verification team should be here any minute. As if on cue, a sharp knock echoed. Two men in plain clothes enter there bearing unmistakably military despite civilian attire. Security verification, Admiral Westfield's detail. The second man moved directly to the observation platform. Modified mount, non-standard. Medical accommodation, Alexis explained. He studied her for a long moment. You look familiar, Officer Miller. A dangerous moment. I transferred from HRE 3 months ago, perhaps from joint training exercises. He nodded slightly. Maintain your position until hearing concludes. After they departed, Reynolds moved to the door. That second man recognized you. Possibly, but not enough to compromise the operation. Through her optics, Alexis watched 3 identical black SUVs pull into the restricted area. The center door opened and Admiral Jonathan Westfield emerged tall, imposing the perfect image of military authority. Alexis increased magnification, focusing on Westfield's face, the man responsible for her father's death, the man who authorized her mother's elimination, the current director of an organization that had corrupted institutions she had sworn to defend. Target acquired, she said quietly, sniper's terminology slipping out unconsciously. Beginning observation sequence. Through high-powered optics, she could see details invisible to naked eye. Slight tension in Westfield's jaw, calculated precision of movements, eyes constantly scanning surroundings. Not normal vigilance, but hyper-awareness of a man with secrets to protect. He knows, Alexis murmured. He knows something's wrong. As Westfield's security detail escorted him toward the building, he paused, saying something to his lead security officer. They're ordering recheck of all observation positions, Wilson warned. Something spooked Westfield. We maintained position, Alexis decided. Changing tactics now would only confirm suspicions. A sharp knock interrupted the tense silence. Mandatory position verification, Admiral's orders. Wilson stepped forward. We were verified 20 minutes ago. New protocol, the officer replied flatly. As security entered, Alexis maintained her position, seemingly focused on her assigned sector, while actually watching Westfield approach the hearing room. Step away from equipment, please. A critical moment. Alexis complied with professional courtesy. The officer examined the observation system. This equipment is non-standard issue. Specialized observation package, Wilson explained. Authorized by Watch Commander Phillips, specifically. The officer's hand moved to his radio. I'll need to verify that. Before he could make the call, his radio crackled. All security elements, Admiral Westfield has entered hearing room. Lockdown protocols in effect. The officer hesitated, then lowered his hand. Verification will continue after hearing. Maintain position until formally relieved. After they departed, Wilson moved to the observation platform. That was close. Through the optics, Alexis could see Westfield taking his seat surrounded by staff and security. Inside the hearing room, the committee chairman began his introduction, a review of special operations funding and priorities. Westfield reviewed his notes outwardly calm, but with subtle tension indicators, repeated adjustment of uniform sleeve, occasional glances toward observation windows. He's scanning for surveillance, Alexis noted. As the chairman concluded and invited Westfield to begin, Alexis increased magnification, focusing entirely on his face. 2 minutes into testimony, he paused, taking a sip of water. A seemingly normal action, but Alexis caught something else, a subtle hand signal to his security chief. Movement at rear entrance, Reynolds warned. Westfield's detail mobilizing. They're preparing to extract him, Wilson realized. Something's triggered their security protocols. Through her earpiece, a new transmission, Hayes' voice on secure channel. Ghost Hunter Capitol Police Database shows security flag on your credentials. Extraction teams mobilized to all observation positions, approximately 3 minutes before your position is compromised. Wilson moved immediately to equipment. We need to evacuate. Not yet, Alexis countered, attention fixed on Westfield. He's about to make a mistake. Through optics, she watched Westfield receive a note from an aide. As he read it, a momentary break in his composed facade revealed something raw and panicked a man whose carefully constructed world was collapsing. There we have it. Have what? His reaction to learning Ghost Hunter is here, she explained, stepping away from the observation platform. The recognition, fear, guilt, all recorded in high definition. Combined with the surgeon's files, it's the evidence we need. They exited position echo with practiced efficiency, leaving no trace of their true purpose. As they moved toward extraction, security alerts echoed through the building system. Reacting too late. In the service area, they changed from Capitol Police uniforms to maintenance worker coveralls. Reynolds led them to a nondescript maintenance van that would attract no attention leaving Capitol grounds. As Wilson drove away, Alexis reviewed the recording. The evidence was irrefutable, Westfield's reaction revealing more than any confession. Hayes will ensure this reaches the right people, Wilson assured her. Senior members of Congress, Justice Department officials who aren't compromised, trusted media. The directive won't be able to contain this. Alexis nodded, satisfaction mixing with exhaustion as adrenaline began to fade. My father would be proud. This is what he died trying to accomplish. And you completed his mission against impossible odds. As they merged into regular Washington traffic, disappearing into anonymity of the nation's capital, Alexis allowed herself a moment of completion. The directive had survived for decades by eliminating threats. They wouldn't go quietly. There would be countermeasures, retaliation attempts to discredit witnesses. The war wasn't over, but today a decisive battle had been won. Ghost Hunter had taken the impossible shot, and as always, her aim was true. 3 days after the Capitol operation, Alexis stood at Coronado Sniper Range where her journey began. The facility was empty, leaving her alone with Wilson and ghosts of the past. Her modified Chaytak was mounted on the shooting bench, custom alterations, accommodating permanent shoulder limitations. The weapon looked different, adapted, evolved, but still deadly effective. Are you sure about this? Wilson asked, standing beside her, with the demeanor of a man who had found unexpected peace. My father set the original record, Alexis replied. It seems fitting that I established the new one. The target stood at 1,500 meters beyond previous record, beyond what conventional wisdom considered possible. But conventional wisdom had never accounted for Ghost Hunter. Hayes sent an update, Roy Wilson mentioned. Senate Intelligence Committee has launched formal investigation into Westfield. 3 other directive members identified and placed on administrative leave. Alexis nodded, focus on the task at hand. And Reynolds, back with his SEAL team, officially unaware of our operation, career intact. The physical therapist was wrong, Wilson observed, about you never shooting professionally again. A small smile crossed Alexis's face. She evaluated my injury according to conventional parameters. I've never been conventional. She settled into position, modified stock fitting against reconfigured stance. Through scope, 1,500-meter target appeared as distant speck. Alexis breathed deeply, centering herself. Pain in her shoulder had become constant, companion present, a reminder of battles fought and survived. She squeezed the trigger. The Chaytak roared, report echoing across empty range. Direct hit, Wilson announced, awe in his voice, despite having witnessed her extraordinary shooting before. Dead center, new range record officially established. What happens now? Wilson asked as they packed equipment. Now I do what my father would have done. I continue the mission. The directive is exposed, Wilson pointed out. Westfield and associates will face justice. Your father's death avenged. The directive is wounded, not eliminated, Alexis corrected. Organizations like that don't die easily. The fight continues. And your role, your military career, is over, cover identity compromised. Alexis smiled, not tight, controlled expression of soldier on mission, but something more genuine. There are other ways to serve, other skills I can contribute. Hayes has connections in intelligence community, people who recognize corruption but lacked evidence to act. They're establishing new oversight mechanism independent of traditional command structure. And they want you. They want Ghost Hunter, Alexis clarified. Not as shooter, but analyst, investigator, someone who identifies patterns others miss. They reached range headquarters where Memorial Wall displayed achievements of legendary snipers. Wilson led her to recently updated section. Alongside her father's record, new entry, Lieutenant Alexis Ghost Hunter Morgan, 75th Ranger Regiment, range record 1,500 meters. Distinguished service in Afghanistan 2012. Alexis traced inscription emotion, briefly overcoming composure. He would be proud, Wilson said quietly, not just of your shooting, but your integrity, your willingness to stand apart when institutions failed. He taught me that, Alexis replied, through his journals, his example. The impossible shot is the only shot worth taking. As they left Coronado, Wilson asked one final question. Do you regret any of it? The cost has been high. No, Alexis answered. Every shot I've taken, every decision made has led to this moment. My father began mission 30 years ago in Somalia. Today that mission is complete. She extended her hand to Wilson, not military salute, but gesture between equals, between friends who faced impossible odds together. Thank you, Chief, for keeping your promise to my father, for standing with me when others wouldn't. Wilson clasped her hand firmly. The honor was mine, Ghost Hunter. As Alexis drove away, leaving behind military career that defined her life, she felt not loss, but transformation. Her father's legacy lived on not just in records or achievements, but principles championed truth over deception, justice over expediency, loyalty to oath rather than corrupted institutions. Ghost Hunter had completed her father's mission. Now she would forge her own path guided by same unwavering principles, facing new challenges with same uncompromising resolve. The impossible shot had been taken. The target struck. The mission accomplished. But legacy continued passed from father to daughter, generation to generation, an unbroken line of those willing to stand apart when necessary, uphold oath. When institutions faltered, take impossible shot when all other options failed. And in that legacy, Mark Morgan lived on through his daughter's hands, through her eyes, through her unwavering commitment to principles for which he had given his life. 6 months later, nondescript office building in Northern Virginia housed what officially didn't exist specialized oversight unit with no name, no public funding, no formal acknowledgement within intelligence community. Alexis Morgan, now operating under codename Kestrel, reviewed intelligence displayed on workstation with same methodical precision once applied to long-range shooting. Patterns emerged from data financial transactions, personnel movements, operational anomalies, invisible to conventional analysis but clear to her specialized perception. Confirmation from Hamburg, announced Hayes entering with tablet. Cell structure identified, surveillance established. That's third remnant cell we've located, the directive rebuilding faster than anticipated. Different leadership, same methodologies, Hayes observed. Adapting but not evolving. This was new battlefield, not mountains or deserts, but shadowy realm of intelligence and counterintelligence. The directive leadership, decimated by Senate investigation, had fragmented into smaller independent cells pursuing same objectives. Profit through betrayal, power through manipulation. Wilson's in position, Alexis asked. Hayes nodded. Established cover as military contractor. Made initial contact with Hamburg cell's recruitment element. Reynolds entered. Surveillance package active, receiving real-time data from Wilson's location. Alexis studied incoming feed audio-video biometric data from Wilson's covert surveillance. The former Master Chief had refused true retirement, volunteering for most dangerous assignment, infiltrating the directive's remnants from within. They're being cautious, she noted. Limited information, compartmentalized knowledge, frequent security verification. But they still need operators, Reynolds pointed out. People with specialized skills and access. That necessity creates vulnerability. Alexis moved to central display, showing the directive's known connections. Her left arm remained in supportive, braced permanent reminder of confrontation with the surgeon. Their recruitment approach has changed, she observed. Less emphasis on senior leadership, more focus on technical specialists. They're building different kind of organization, less dependent on official positions, more reliant on technological advantage. An urgent alert flashed on Alexis's secure device. Asset compromised. Exfiltration required. Hamburg operation critical failure. Wilson's been made, Reynolds stated, moving to operations console, activating emergency extraction protocols. How cover was perfect approach, methodical. Hayes reviewed surveillance data. Facial recognition system in Hamburg Financial District. The directive has accessed German security infrastructure. If the directive could compromise national security systems in allied countries, their reach exceeded previous assessments. Extraction options, Alexis asked. Wilson's current position is cafe in Hamburg's warehouse district. Nearest extraction team, 20 minutes out. He won't survive 20 minutes if positively identified, Hayes stated grimly. A new message from Wilson. 3 tangos approaching. Southeast corner. 4th on roof opposite. 5th unknown. Proceeding with Kestrel protocol. Alexis's expression tightened. Kestrel protocol was emergency contingency high-risk option when extraction impossible and capture unacceptable. He's going to eliminate threat and self-extract, she translated. Create confusion through aggressive counterattack rather than evasion. When satellite imagery appeared, it showed thermal signatures Wilson and Cafe 3 approaching from southeast as reported, 1 on rooftop, 5th in vehicle at street corner. Classic killbox configuration. Alexis studied tactical situation with detached precision. Rooftop position is primary shooter. 3 approaching our assault team. Vehicle is containment and extraction. Standard directive elimination protocol, Hayes confirmed. Same methodology used on your mother. The reminder sent chill through Alexis, but she remained focused. Wilson sees it too. He'll neutralize rooftop threat first, then use confusion to engage assault team. A single gunshot, suppressed but audible on sensitive microphones, followed by thermal signature on rooftop collapsing. Wilson immediately abandoned cafe through rear exit, emerging into narrow alley. He's created engagement channel, Alexis noted with professional approval, forcing approach through confined space where numerical advantage neutralized. Two assault team members pursued Wilson into alley third, moved to cut off escape. Vehicle began repositioning for containment. What followed was masterclass in close quarters combat. Within seconds, both pursuers neutralized with career special operator precision. Third assault team member attempted withdrawal. Wilson pursued, eliminating this threat before it could rejoin vehicle operator. 4 down, 1 remaining. Reynolds tracked. Driver attempting to extract. The vehicle moved rapidly away, driver recognizing an operation had failed catastrophically. He won't make it, Alexis predicted, watching Wilson secure motorcycle likely positioned as part of emergency extraction plan. The motorcycle pursued fleeing vehicle through Hamburg's narrow streets. When vehicle attempted to merge onto larger thoroughfare, Wilson executed precision maneuver, forcing controlled crash against concrete barrier. Final thermal signature showed momentary movement, then stillness. Target neutralized, Hayes confirmed. Wilson proceeding to secondary extraction point. Alert Hamburg Station Chief, Wilson needs immediate exfiltration. As Operations Center transitioned to next mission phase, Alexis took moment of private reflection. The directive had evolved, adapted to exposure of previous incarnation. But so had she, from military sniper to intelligence operator, from ghost hunter to kestrel. Battle space changed, but fundamental conflict remained. Same those corrupting system from within versus those protecting it. Her father fought this battle 30 years earlier in Somalia. She continued it in Afghanistan and Washington. Now it extended to Hamburg and beyond, global chess match with highest possible stakes. Her phone vibrated with message from Wilson. Package secure. Returning to nest. Kestrel protocol complete. A small smile crossed Alexis's face. Wilson had survived, not just survived, but triumphed against overwhelming odds. Old warrior still honoring promise made to her father 3 decades earlier. The directive remained threat, but no longer invulnerable. They had struck at her family country principles. Now she struck back, not with sniper's bullet, but same precision, same unwavering resolve. Kestrel, small hunting falcon known for hovering while spotting prey at great distances, appropriate code name for new role. Still hunter, still deadly accurate in different domain. The impossible shot continued in new form, and as always, her aim remained true. 1 year after confrontation with the surgeon in Afghanistan mountains, Alexis stood on windswept bluff of Arlington National Cemetery, watching honor guard full flag from her father's coffin. After 30 years, Mark Phantom Morgan had finally returned home. Recovery of his remains, unexpected outcome of operations against the directive. Intelligence from Hamburg cell led to remote compound in Somalia where documentation revealed previously unknown gravesite near Mogadishu. DNA confirmation, immediate and definitive, long-missing SEAL sniper found at last. Wilson stood beside her, face solemn as ceremonial rifles fired salute. Reynolds and Hayes positioned behind them, part of small gathering, including select special operations community members. No media, no public announcement, just as Mark Morgan, lived final interment, remained away from spotlight. As honor guard presented folded flag, Alexis accepted with right hands, left arm, secured in permanent brace. Physical reminder of her sacrifice, particularly poignant in moment of closure. Your father would be proud, Wilson said quietly. Not just of what you've accomplished, but who you've become. Alexis nodded, emotions tightly controlled but present. There were times I wasn't sure we'd ever find him. The past year had seen remarkable progress in shadow war against the directive remnants. Hamburg operation just beginning. Armed with recovered intelligence, they systematically identified and neutralized operational elements in Brussels, Zurich, and Singapore. New leadership structure identified, Alexis asked as they reached cemetery entrance. Confirmed, Reynolds replied. Former CIA Deputy Director Anthony Chambers, currently operating under diplomatic cover at U.S. Embassy in Vienna. Chambers' name appearing repeatedly in the surgeon's Verlauf files, always peripheral, never directly implicated. Master of bureaucratic survival who navigated Westfield's collapse while positioning himself as natural successor. He's scheduled to attend European Security Conference next month, Hayes explained. First public appearance in new role, maximum visibility, minimum security vulnerability. As they entered lead vehicle, Wilson studied Alexis. You're planning something beyond surveillance. The directive cannot reconstitute, Alexis answered. Chambers represents last remaining senior leadership. Without him, remaining cells lose strategic direction. Direct action against former CIA deputy director at International Security Conference would have significant consequences, Reynolds cautioned. So would allowing the directive to re-emerge under his leadership, Alexis countered. We've seen their operational history assassinations disguised as accidents, intelligence sold to hostile powers, American personnel sacrificed for profit. The vehicle moved through Arlington's tree-lined roads, passing rows of white headstones, marking generations of American sacrifice. My father began this fight 30 years ago. He recognized the directive for what it was, cancer within our institutions, betrayal of everything we're sworn to protect. He died trying to expose them. My mother died continuing his work. I won't allow their sacrifices to be in vain. Vienna will require a different approach than Hamburg. More subtle, more precise. Not direct elimination, Alexis clarified. Exposure. Chambers must be publicly linked to the directive's operations with evidence that cannot be dismissed or classified away. There's something else you should know, Hayes said as they approached headquarters. Intelligence from Singapore included references to contingency protocol codenamed Ghost Eater. Analysis, Alexis inquired, maintaining composure. Still preliminary, but appears to be targeted elimination protocol specifically designed for you, Chambers authorized 3 months ago. Wilson's expression darkened. They're hunting Ghost Hunter. They're trying, Alexis corrected, but they've forgotten something important. What's that? A small, determined smile crossed her face. I was never prey. I was always hunter. Alexis took final moment with father's flag before passing to Wilson for safekeeping during operational briefing. He used to say precision isn't just mechanics or calculations, she recalled. It's patience waiting for perfect moment when all elements align. The moment when impossible shot becomes inevitable. Exactly. Vienna will be that moment for Chambers and the directive, culmination of everything we built since Afghanistan. As team moved inside, transitioning from Arlington's solemnity to operational center's focused professionalism, Alexis felt sense of completion forming. Mission begun with father in Somalia continued through mother's investigations, fallen to her in Afghanistan, approached final phase. Chambers represented last thread of original organization final target. To complete mission, her father died attempting 3 decades earlier. Vienna planning begins now, she announced. Full operational spectrum, maximum precision, zero collateral impact. Objective, not elimination, but exposure. Your father once told me something I've never forgotten, Wilson said quietly as team dispersed. He said in our line of work, we rarely see full impact of our actions. We take shot complete mission move on never knowing how many lives saved, threats prevented. But sometimes we get it to see mission through to completion. To know with certainty that what we've done has mattered. Vienna will provide that certainty, Alexis affirmed. For my father, my mother, everyone. The directive harmed over 3 decades. The legacy of Hunter continued father to daughter, generation to generation. Impossible shot had become her signature inheritance purpose. And in 1 month in Vienna, Ghost Hunter would complete her father's mission once and for all. 3 months after the Arlington ceremony, a crisp autumn morning in Vienna, Benny witnessed the culmination of 3 decades of pursuit. The European Security Conference, crowded with diplomats, intelligence officials, and media, became the stage for the directive's final act. As Anthony Chambers approached the podium for his keynote address, screens throughout the conference center simultaneously displayed classified documents, financial records, and operational details linking him directly to 3 decades of treachery. His expression, captured by dozens of cameras, told a story that no denial could counter. Back in their Virginia headquarters, Alexis watched the scene unfold with quiet satisfaction. Precision execution, Hayes remarked, observing the chaos erupting across international news channels. Not a shot fired, Reynolds added, yet more devastating than any bullet. Wilson placed a hand on Alexis's shoulder, her good one. Mark would consider this his finest operation. As global intelligence agencies scrambled to contain the fallout, the organization that had operated in shadows for 30 years finally faced the light of public scrutiny. The directive was finished. That evening, Alexis visited Arlington one last time, placing her father's dog tags beside his headstone. Mission complete, she whispered. The impossible shot had finally found its mark.